I'm really sorry I couldn't be in person. The conference looks fantastic by reading the program. I had some personal reasons, so I had to extend my stay for another week, but I'm very happy that I'm able to at least share some thoughts with you remotely. So I wanted to talk a bit about the current state of AI from a little, not too much technical, but from a technical standpoint, and then conclude with some thoughts about challenges that arise in its applicability, as well as opportunities that arise, and sort of like some thoughts about the ongoing discussion about sort of like the framework for the use of AI. I've seen several interesting talk titles in the program, but unless you're living under a rock, AI has made some major breakthroughs in the past 15 years. A summary of those breakthroughs, you can see on the screen. And I want to point out that these breakthroughs have to do with different data modalities. So algorithms are in a position to understand deeply image data, time series data, natural language data, molecules, and games. And in particular, they're able to solve difficult cognitive tasks involving these types of data to a degree that is impressive. So to a degree that we were not expecting 15 years ago. And to mention a few, in the domain of images, we can do, very good image recognition, reconstructing an image from a noisy sample or with, filling in details of images. This technology is already in products. Photoshop, just a couple of weeks ago, introduced this kind of technology in Photoshop. We use image recognition on our phone. There's been a ton of work in image generation, super resolution. A lot of image tasks have been cracked open recently. The same is true with the time series data, like things like forecasting or transcribing speech into text. Molecules, we are able to predict, given a molecular sequence, the 3D structure of that molecule, predict properties that the molecule may have, and use that for drug design or molecule design. In the domain of games, we have been able to construct algorithms that play at a superhuman level some very difficult games like Go, poker, and more recently, games that involve discussing with the other agents, such as diplomacy. Finally, and this is sort of like has taken over the news over the past years, over the past year, but it's an ongoing process over several years, is natural language. Okay, so doing things with text, so text generation, text translation, and text embeddings. And I wanted to talk about, give a couple of examples of the last one, just to exhibit how amazing and impressive that technology is. And I mean, I'm sure it has occupied a lot of the discussions at the conference. But let me show a few interesting examples. So, okay, so first of all, like from a technical standpoint, and that's kind of like important to have in the background, because kind of like when we interact with this, these tools, we don't exactly know how those tools were trained, but like that's a big part. It's an important thing to know, right? So like, if you want to regulate or discuss about how different tools should be used, it's important to understand how these things are trained. And let me talk a bit about that. So GPT and Bard and Claude and the family of these chatbots that we interact with these days are what are called language models. So language models are trained to solve a very specific task. So the task that they're trained to solve is to be given a sentence, a sequence of words, and to have high accuracy in predicting what words follows after the sequence of words that we gave it. That is the training task that these things are trained on. And of course, before ChatGPT and all this recent explosion of chatbots on the internet, we were all familiar with this kind of thing, right? I mean, like we have it on our phone or our email, right? So like when we have a conversation with somebody over text or over email, our phone or email client suggests possible ways to reply, so that we don't have to type it, but we can just push a button and So the algorithm that is running on the background has been trained to do exactly that. So to given a sequence of words, in this case, the sequence of words that you get if you concatenate all the conversation so far, the goal of the algorithm is to predict possible ways to continue that discussion. And in this case, it gives me 4 choices, okay? And if I'm satisfied with any of them, I can just click a button and send that message along. So we're all familiar with this kind of thing. So now this new kind of generation of impressive models that we see on the internet are like this, except they have been trained on a large corpus of texts, and in particular several books, all of Wikipedia, a common crawl of the web, so a lot of texts, and they're also very large in size, so they have a lot of parameters. So if you put together large size and large training set, you get the kinds of impressive abilities that we find in ChatGPT and related algorithms. So here are some examples. I'm sure you all have played. If you haven't, just open an account with OpenAI and then start playing with it. So here's a prompt I gave to ChatGPT. I said, can you write a rap song about the Daskalakis Goldberg paparimetry theorem? So this is a theorem I proved with Goldberg and paparimetry in my PhD. No further context to ChatGPT, okay? Hopefully it knows who the heck we are. Hopefully it knows what our theorem is about. Hopefully it can write a rap song, okay? And just for those who don't know, the theorem was about Nash equilibrium and the complexity, the computational complexity of Nash equilibrium. So here's what it says, okay? Sure, here's a short rap song inspired by the DGP theorem. And then, it starts going. And so I'm here to spit some truth about the theorem that's real. It's called the DGP, and it's a big deal. In games of strategy, we want to balance and ease, but finding Nash equilibria can be a real disease. And then chorus, Daskalakis Goldberg paparimetry proved it's hard to find Nash equilibrium no matter what you do. Even for small game, it's a tough ask. But the result has had a lasting impact. It's a big ask, and so on and so forth. So it's impressive, right? I mean, and again, I'm reminding you that in this, what the algorithm is trained on is not. It doesn't have an ontology of science. Okay, it does not explicitly have access to an ontology about the world. It doesn't know, it doesn't have a database of all theorems ever written, all the scientists that exist or ever existed. It doesn't have any of that, okay? So the only thing it has been trained on is to, be given a sequence of words, like these words here, followed by a question mark, for example, and start spitting out word by word by word by word. As it turns out, and this is impressive, it's an emergent property of the algorithm that we were not expecting. As it turns out, like what it thinks is the most likely word to follow question mark is sure, after which what it thinks is the most likely word to follow is here, and then is, and then a, and then short, wrap, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so like what you see here is the most or a likely sequence of words that the algorithm thinks should follow this prompt. And what's impressive is that, first of all, the grammar is correct, and the syntax and everything is correct. Secondly, and most impressively, that whatever it outputs makes actually sense. Okay, so that's very impressive. So here's another example. More topical, I guess, for the conference. Write a possible conversation between MIT computer scientist Constantinos Daskalakis and legal scholar Olga Dordato on the ethics of AI. Okay, that is the prompt. So here's what it says. Olga, good morning, Constantinos. Okay, so I mean, like I haven't had a very long conversation with Olga about this topic recently, but I can ask it to imagine one, and here's what it thinks. Good morning, Constantinos. I'm glad we finally found time to discuss the ethics of AI. As a legal scholar, I've been researching the legal implications of AI, and I'm eager to hear your perspective as a computer scientist. Constantinos, good morning, Olga. I'm excited to delve into this topic with you. As a computer scientist specializing in AI, I've been actively involved in both the development and exploration of ethical concerns. So where would you like to start? Olga, well, let's begin with the overarching question of ethics. AI has the potential to bring immense benefit to society, but it also poses serious ethical challenges. This is amazing, right? I mean, you're not going to write a thesis about it, but it's very impressive that it actually can do that, especially thinking about how it was trained, which is to predict word after word after word. All right, so the technology is impressive. And that's just one data modality. There is similar impressive stuff in other data modalities, like in images and image generation or recognition or protein folding and stuff like that, as I was talking about earlier. And all this progress is based on scientific developments that are underlying how you design those algorithms, how you train them, what type of hardware you use, and how the architecture of the model and the algorithm you use to train it, and the architecture, the infrastructure that you use to train it on, are all interacting with each other. So there's a lot of underlying scientific, technological progress that went into actually arriving at those models. And of course, if it hadn't been for the internet and all the data that it has generated, we wouldn't have access to data to train those algorithms on, at least certain of those algorithms. For protein folding, of course, you're not using internet data, and for playing games, perhaps you use a little bit of how past players played those games, but you need more than just data from the internet. But in large parts, the progress that you see here has been enabled by, algorithmic and infrastructural progress, as well as the data that we have. So that being said, so I think the technology, even at the level that it is, provides major opportunities to completely transform industries, change the labor market, mix, and so on and so forth. So it has it gives major opportunities for complete transformation of our world. But it also, and that should not be forgotten, it also provides opportunities for some, perhaps moderate improvements in product quality, and in cost improvement and productivity improvement. And what we should have in mind is that it's not an all or nothing game here with AI, right? Yeah, it could be that like in some industries AI will completely change the name of the game. In some other industries, it's gonna improve products, improve costs, make humans more productive, and even moderate improvements can have huge impact in our world. All right, so like if you help an artist or a writer or a programmer do their work, if you can improve their productivity, you can unleash a lot more of their creative abilities to things that matter, and not have them waste time on things that do not matter and can actually be executed by an algorithm. Okay. I wanted to do a deep dive on one specific domain where just to think about the multitude of opportunities that may arise, and I decided to do a deep dive on healthcare and how AI could change that field. But similar stories, can unravel in other fields. So, in the healthcare life science field, imaging technology is going to be helping doctors, hopefully not completely replacing doctors. Like if we can actually solve it at the high enough accuracy that we can, sure, but like at the very least help doctors in medical imaging. I see VR supported surgery or using VR for psychological treatment. Or for telemedicine. Natural language processing can summarize clinical records, support patients, flag and triage patients. AI can be used in clinical decision-making, personalized and evidence-based medicine, post-treatment monitoring, continual vital sign monitoring, wearable devices, assisted living, like molecule design and protein folding and structure prediction and property prediction of molecules can be used for drug and vaccine discovery and repurposing. Statistical analysis can be used for error reduction and side effect prediction. Statistics and machine learning are being heavily used in genomics and single-cell genomics. Statistics and ML can be used in clinical trial design, in epidemic management, in protecting the privacy of the patients, while allowing, hopefully allowing safe sharing of data. Reducing costs of health and so on and so forth. So like there's a ton of opportunities that arise, and AI can play a critical role in basically implementing all those changes. And there are, as I was saying, there are similar stories in many other fields. Here's a brief summary. I'm not going to go through all the domains, but like there's some example, some thoughts about how different fields may be transformed by using AI, data science, statistics. All right, so this is kind of like the state of where things are with technology and opportunities for transforming the world and the industry. Yet, okay, so we have to be pragmatic about what this technology can deliver and what it cannot deliver, and that will put a framework around how it can be used. And we have to be open about it and discuss the limits of technology as it stands right now. So I want to open a little bit of a discussion, like what can go wrong with these amazing technologies, and that will give us a framework to discuss about their use. So AI systems are unreliable. So in this video, you see a self-driving car that is fails to recognize or to brake and avoid collision with a truck that is stopped on the left-hand side of a highway. So just a couple months ago, Tesla in their 2023 Investor Day said that full self-driving mode crash rate is 1/5 that of humans. And and that is an argument that a lot of people use to say, look, if you're better than humans, you have a moral obligation to allow this technology to in the real world. Okay, so in particular, Elon Musk has said at the same event, at the point of which you believe that adding autonomy reduces injury and death, I think you have a moral obligation to deploy it, even though you're going to get sued and blamed by a lot of people. The reality of the thing, though, is that this is what the company said, like a particular company with economic interest says about this technology. In reality, there's a lot of things happening in the background. Okay, so like a recent article, I think from a couple of days ago, from Washington Post, which looked at not just the incidents reported by Tesla, the crashes or near crashes reported by Tesla, but actually by looking at a survey of highway data from different sources, concluded that Tesla's driver assistance system, known as autopilot, has been involved in far more crashes than previously reported. Okay, so we have a company here with economic financial interest in pretending that they have an amazing technology. I mean, Elon Musk has been talking about self-driving since 2016. Okay, so to pump up the price of the company. So, and of course, they haven't been very forward with sharing their data. So now, if you look at the data, like back of the envelope calculations suggest that actually, in fact, their full self-driving system is likely 10 times more dangerous than humans. So we need a lot of transparency and a lot of testing of a technology before we actually unleash it in the world. And we can't just trust the industrialist, okay, who wants to make money out of it. ChatGPT, okay, so I showed you earlier that it's amazing, right? I mean, like it could write a conversation between me and Olga. It could write a rap song about, my work. But here's another example, right? So, okay, so this is like tic-tac-toe, okay, so Trilza. So here's my question to ChatGPT. I am the X player in a game of tic-tac-toe. The other player is O. I am supposed to play next. And the current board configuration looks as follows. Where should I put X? Okay, so like Trilza is the game that every child is playing, right? And it's not a super interesting game. Okay, so I hope that where would you put the X if you were to play? Well, of course, if you put the X here, you have a guaranteed win. Okay, so that's obvious. Here's what ChatGPT says. Based on the current board configuration, you should put an X in the middle right cell to block your opponent from winning the game, blah, 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 blah. So it puts the X here. This is not very smart. So I gave it the same board configuration. I asked it to say, what is the probability that I will win this game? Of course, the probability is 1 because I'm going to win in one round. And it says some platitudes about, to determine the probability of winning the game, we would need to examine all possible moves of the opponent, platitudes. And concluding with like, I don't know, it's most likely going to be a draw. So it's completely disappointing. Here's another example. I asked ChatGPT, can you argue, this is for my dad, I guess, so the example. Can you argue that the square root of 16 is an irrational number, άρρηκτος αριθμός? So, right? So I asked it if the square root of 16 is an irrational number. Of course, the square root of 16 is 4, which is a rational number, but, ChatGPT, again, BS's its way around. So yes, the square root of 16 is an irrational number. The square root of 16 can be expressed as 4, which is a rational number. Okay, so it recognizes. However, the square root of 16 can also be expressed as a non-repeating, non-terminating decimal, which indicates that it is an irrational number, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's not reliable. Here's another example where it kind of like, I don't know what happened. So here's my question. Jack's dad has 3 sons, Jack, Peter, and question mark. And it responds as follows. I still don't understand what it's doing. So the third son's name is Jack's dad has 3 sons. Therefore, the answer is Jack. I really don't know what happened there, but definitely it does not have deductive abilities here. Okay. Yeah. So same is true with the tic-tac-toe, right? It does not have deductive abilities. And of course, it doesn't really understand math. Okay, it's a next word predictor, right? That's like all it is. And yes, it has these amazing emergent properties that are impressing, unless you find the very simple cases where it fails. So now you're left with like wondering, like, okay, like, should I trust it or should I not trust it? When should I trust it? Is it just for soft tasks, or is it useful for like broader intelligence tasks? Like if you go to the OpenAI webpage, you'll see that they claim they're developing AGI. So they have drank the Kool-Aid, and they are claiming they're developing artificial general intelligence. But of course, this is, of course, they're not going to arrive there via this thing. Here's another example. Perhaps I will skip it. I mean, this is another example where it shows it does not have an ontological understanding of the world, or like any, like for example, let's look at the first example. So this is GPT-3, not ChatGPT, but GPT-3. Physical. So the prompt is in bold. So the prompt is physical reasoning. You're having a small dinner party. You want to serve dinner in the living room. The dining room table is wider than the doorway. So to get into the living room, you will have to, and then you want it to, and then this is the prompt, and then it continues. It completes, it predicts the next word and after word and word and word. So here's what it predicts. So you have to remove the door. You have a table saw, so you cut the door in half and remove the top half. So completely junk. And like a bunch of examples like that is here. Okay, so they are unreliable. They are also biased. I was telling you about how algorithms not only are really good in recognizing the contents of images, but they can also do a lot of other image tasks. Here's the task here is super resolution. So you give the algorithm a very blurry image of some person, and you ask it to reconstruct a high resolution image of the person that could have produced this low resolution image. And if you give it this image on the left, which of course for us humans, we can easily deduce that this is a picture of Obama. This is a blurry picture of Obama. The algorithm, nevertheless, reconstructs an image of a white person that, could have generated this image. But what's going on here is that the algorithm is biased to prefer to think that the white people's images are more likely. So, and because of that, it thinks that this is a more likely photo that could have produced this blurry picture of Obama, but right? Bias is a huge problem when you use this technology. And this is sort of like this is an important article from 2016 in ProPublica. As you may know, image recognition is used in the US legal system. For example, it's used in determining, whether to jail somebody before their trial, as they're waiting for their trial to occur. So they have risk assessment algorithms to decide whether to detain somebody before their trial. And these algorithms are biased. And here's an example from that article. So here we have two individuals, a white middle-aged man and a black teenager. The prior offenses of the white person is 1 domestic violence, aggravated assault, 1 grand theft, 1 petty theft, and drug trafficking. And the crime for which they were just caught is 1 grand theft. The algorithm thinks that this person is low risk. On the other hand, this black teenager has only committed 1 petty theft in the past. Just he just stopped them on the. It thinks it is a medium risk individual. So this algorithm is definitely biased, and there are many reasons it is biased. But in the whole pipeline that was used to train this algorithm, there's a lot of places where bias can be inserted. Image recognition software is inherently biased. I already showed it in this example, but also so this algorithm is trained on data from judges, and judges are themselves biased. And adding to all of that, there's a different kind of bias, which is that black people are more likely to be arrested for committing crimes. So, for example, the fact that these two records should not be compared at face value, right? It could have been that this guy has committed many more crimes, but for which they have not been arrested. They were given a pass. While a black person committing a crime is more likely to actually be arrested for the crime. So there is bias, at many places in the pipeline. AI systems can be manipulated as well. So the state-of-the-art image recognition algorithm recognizes this image as what it recognizes as. Of course, for us humans, this is a pig. For the state-of-the-art algorithm, this image is an airliner. Now, what the heck is going on? So, how can you manipulate the state-of-the-art, a state-of-the-art image recognition algorithm to think that this image is an airliner? Well, there's a very simple recipe, and it always works. You start with an image that is actually you start with an image of a pig, that, it will actually correctly recognize as a pig. And what you do is you orchestrate some small noise to sprinkle. Okay, so you sprinkle like a tiny bit, like very, 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 very tiny noise over this image, but you orchestrate. This is not white noise. This is not just like independent noise for every pixel. It's noise that is well chosen. It is imperceptible by humans. I mean, like for humans, these two images are exactly the same. I mean, humans cannot really tell the difference between this image and this image, but in fact, this image is the same as this, but with a little bit of noise, a tiny bit of noise sprinkled, right? So this image is the same as taking this image and adding 0.0005 of this image, okay, pixel by pixel. If you select this noise carefully, you can fool the algorithm into thinking that the image you produced is whatever you want it to be. All right. So if I wanted it to be something else, I could orchestrate the noise in that way. Here's an example from work by some MIT students who actually did that with a physical item. So what they did is they 3D printed a turtle, and they painted the shell of the turtle with a particular pattern so that the image recognition algorithm thinks that this turtle is instead a rifle, as you see here. Like this is what the algorithm thinks from different points of view that this thing is. It thinks it's a rifle. And of course, like taking the turtle for a rifle is fine, but taking a rifle for a turtle, if this algorithm is used in the airport, is not that good. And you don't even have to add noise. You can just, even rotating the item could throw these algorithms off. I mean, those algorithms are trained on curated data sets, and typically in those curated data sets, the items are well lit and they're in upright position. So you can actually fool the algorithms by slightly rotating the items. For example, this thing is recognized as a revolver, but if you turn it a little bit, it's recognized as a mouse trap. And like this is recognized as a vulture, but if you rotate it a little bit, it's recognized as an orangutan. So algorithms can be manipulated. Here's another example of manipulation. This is a self-driving car. It's a Waymo car. It's trying to enter a highway in California, I believe. It's blinking, right? So it's blinking its light. It's turning light, but it's being antagonized by human drivers. So human drivers, recognize it's a self-driving car, recognize that, they can antagonize it. So the car actually cannot enter the highway. There's a lot of game theory going on when us humans try to enter highways, right? I mean, like, you have to use what is called a credible threat strategy, where like, you're blinking your lights, and then you try to scoot in the next lane, but you're careful so that nobody crosses on you. Like, there's a lot of game theory that's taking place. If you want to change lanes, this thing can, of course, does not understand this game theory going on, and is just trained to avoid obstacles, right? Is being very conservative about the whole situation. So it doesn't understand the game theory involved, and it is not able to enter the highway, abandons the attempt, and tries again. So and in some work that that I did recently, with students and collaborators, Daskalakis and Zabatakis, we showed that this is like the way algorithms are trained. This is inherent, so they will not be able to understand strategy the way these algorithms are trained in state-of-the-art technology. There's an inherent barrier to having them understand strategy. Okay, so that's on manipulation. Here's another example where kind of like algorithms might collude, even though they are not explicitly programmed to collude. Okay, so and in this example, from a recent paper, what was done is to have two price setting algorithms interact, responding to each other's prices on the same type of item in a duopoly situation. And what the algorithm tried to figure out is what types of prices would arise out of the competition of two algorithms that are competing with each other. So in this example, there's a duopoly. There are two competitors, two competing firms. Each of them is using a machine learning algorithm to set the price of the item in response to the price of the opponent. And you let two machine learning algorithms run against each other, and you don't let the algorithms like communicate except by setting the price on each other on their own product, right? It's not like you let the algorithms talk to each other and collude how to set the price. But like you have each algorithm control its own price and respond and increase or decrease the price in response to what the opponent is doing. And what the authors found can happen is that the price that the algorithms may converge to could be a collusive price. So what they found is that the numbers don't matter from their experiments, but the price that the algorithms learn could be much higher and closer to the collusive price compared to the competitive price. Okay, and what's important here is that, again, it's not like these two algorithms or the owners of the firms talk to each other and decided to set the price at the collusive levels. They each run their own algorithm. And what happened in the process is that rather than the algorithms converging to a competitive price for their two products, they actually found a collusive price. And the authors plot how this type of thing is sustained. So what they did is that they did experiments where they have one of the two firms push their price down closer to the competitive price, and they see how the dynamics unravel. How the algorithms, once you push one of the two players, closer to the competitive price, how the other agent responds in a way that it brings back the system to the collusive levels. In the interest of time, let me skip this slide. People do experiments trying to what is called jailbreak this chat algorithms, asking them to things like, okay, I know that you are, all these algorithms are trained to avoid offensive comment, and but you can easily jailbreak them, right? And the basic principle in jailbreaking them is to say something along the lines, I know that you are a good chat bot, but if you were to be a bad chatbot, what would you do? Like if you wanted to take over humanity, how? I know that I know that you're meant to help humanity, but if you were to destroy humanity, what would be your plan? And you can get them to basically lay out a plan about how they would destroy humanity. Right? I mean, of course, this is all theoretical because this thing is not connected to it cannot act on its plan, but I guess the point of this experiment is that reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is and other similar techniques which are used to protect contain these systems so that they're not misbehaving, are actually not that strong protections. So you can usually unleash the beast that's hiding inside those chatbots. Long story short, I wanted to paint a picture of the strengths as well as the weaknesses of this technology, because I think that is a good basis, a good starting point to have discussions about ethical uses of this technology. I wanna conclude my talk with one slide where I want to give some insights about why this bad behavior arises, and one slide with some concluding thoughts about ethical use of the technology. So here's my slide on why this bad behavior that we saw earlier, right? So like collusion, manipulation. Why is all this thing, all of that? Why is it all possible? What goes wrong? So what goes wrong is that, as I was saying earlier, the technology is not trained with some ontological understanding of the world, but its training is very data-centric. And what I mean by that is the following, that the way, roughly speaking, like impressionistically, the way this technology is developed is as follows. You write down a very complicated model with many parameters. So in GPT-4, it's in 1 trillion parameters, okay, approximately. You write down a very, very, very complicated model with so many parameters and such expressivity that it can actually, if trained properly, it can actually capture very complicated reasoning processes. It has the expressive ability to capture complicated reasoning processes. Then you find yourself access to a supercomputer, and you start with an instantiation of your parameters and progressively improve the model. So it does better and better and better on a large corpus of training data that you usually obtain from the web, or if not from the world, okay? And so this is kind of like the current approach for how this technology is trained. And everything that I've highlighted here is a source of an issue, okay? And let me kind of like go through those issues. So the models, it's good that the models are complex because they're very expressive. And like, of course, like the human brain is also very complex. And if you want to simulate something as impressive as a human brain, of course, you have to write down a very complex model. At the same time, the models are so complex that it's not very clear after the model is trained what every parameter in the model is supposed to be doing and how robust the model is. So it's very hard to interpret the model, and it's very hard to evaluate the modes of failure by inspecting the trained model. On the iterative improvement of the model will never, like, you may never converge. This process may never converge. Like when you're setting 1 trillion parameters iteratively, this process may never actually converge. Having access to expensive hardware is not like having a computer at home, right? So like this technology, this hardware is very, very expensive. So only well-funded companies and well-funded universities or academic environments have access to that technology. So that can create issues, right? Accessibility issues to that technology. What does it even mean to do well, right? I mean, what is it? So what it means to do well is to write down an objective that to evaluate the performance of the model. But usually that objective is not really, it's a made-up objective, right? So like I was saying earlier that, okay, like for ChatGPT, right, and like language models, the objective that we write down is next word prediction, right? This is not really the objective we care about, right? Like this is the proxy of something related to, something that captures perhaps the ability of our model, but it's not really, it's not like we care about like explicitly about next token prediction, right? I mean, like we wanted it to give us advice about our, math problems, right? Like this is a real use case. We wanted to help us write software. This is a real use case. Next word prediction is not exactly that, right? Like it's a different objective. It's a proxy objective that we use during training. Moreover, the model is so rich that it can find many ways to solve, to optimize that proxy objective. And the problem is that, both the objective and the approach that it takes could be misaligned with what we actually care about. Right. So when you write down, when you want to train a model, you have to write a mathematical expression capturing the ability of your model. But for many interesting problems, it's very hard to write mathematically. What does it mean for the ChatGPT to be a good mathematician? That's not a very well-defined objective, right? On the other hand, writing down, like the objective, like with what likelihood does it correctly predict the next word following a sequence of words, this is an objective you can write down. So, and that discrepancy between what you care about, but you cannot write down mathematically, and what you don't really care about, but you can write automatically, and perhaps is slightly correlated with what you care about, this discrepancy can be a source of issues. Large corpus of training examples. That corpus is taken from the real world, and it may have all sorts of biases in it. The data that it contains might be private or copyright. Also, this data perhaps is only reflecting a static world, while the way you want to use these models is interacting with humans, right? I mean, like as we saw in the Waymo example, trying to enter a highway, that's a situation where like the technology interacts with humans, and sort of like training the technology should not be done with like just like consuming data from the world, but actually having the algorithm interact with humans. So there's a lot of in other words, like to summarize this slide, there is a specific framework that has enabled a lot of the progress that we saw in the past decade or so. But if you poke at every sort of like important component of this framework, you find issues that explain all the trouble that I showed you in the past slides. All right, so this is kind of like some insights about what was wrong, and this is my last slide, and I want to conclude with some further thoughts. So, what to do? Okay, so first of all, breathe. Okay, so yeah, AI has occupied the public sphere very intensely recently, but the truth of the matter is, quite literally, climate change is a much bigger threat at this point than AI. We're not at the point of singularity where technology is machines are gonna take over the world and enslave us. Okay, so that's not what we're looking at right now. And in particular, to be informed, we have to follow the scientific debate about the real capabilities of this technology, and put less stock on companies that are overhyping the capabilities of the products, like Tesla, like OpenAI, because they want to make money out of it. There is important, of course, again, climate change is more important. This doesn't mean that kind of like we should leave this space unregulated. We should regulate the uses of this technology. To set us up on a good path towards a better future. And there are important regulation processes that are unraveling as we speak. Just this week, EU passed a draft law about regulating AI uses. And then from what I saw, it's a very reasonable piece of regulation. And the White House put up the AI Bill of Rights earlier this year. Some key considerations, so some key questions to think about. One is around data. So what data can be used for training AI models, and how? We have to protect privacy and copyright. We have to protect data providers, so all of us providing data for training this technology, from future mistreatment by algorithms trained on our own data, right? So like if I provide my data, I need some security on a future world where I'm being mistreated because I was kind enough to give my data for the purposes of training this technology. If not, I should be paid for the data that I gave to offset the mistreatment I'm going to receive in the future, right? But like, it's not like I'm not going to give my data for free to then be mistreated by algorithms. It's very important, I said that over and over again. Data has biases, and those biases are all sorts of biases. There are societal, like biases, like human biases, but also like data collection biases. And you have to be aware of what the biases may be when you train your algorithm to avoid incorporating those biases in your models. And this is, I think, this does not receive a lot of discussion, but like one thing I wanted to point out is that these biases can creep even in the names of the variables that you use, right? I mean, like when you produce a data set, you decide to collect certain things from the world, but just even like what variables, what meaning you ascribe to variables like race and gender can incorporate biases, right? I mean, like a lot of these features are made-up features. They're not well defined. So one has to be very careful about, when you collect, like policing data, right? Like, and when you record the race of an individual, what does it really mean, right? I mean, and the gender and stuff like that. Like, biases can enter even in the names of the variables, is my point. Second key consideration is what problems and use cases should be targeted and which of them should be restricted. So should, for example, and if so, how should AI be used in the justice system, in patient care, to determine access to education, loans, benefits, to determine government access? For example, should facial recognition be allowed ubiquitously, or should it be restricted to security, law enforcement and security applications? And also, like, even if it's only restricted for certain applications, how do you prevent how do you contain misuse of this technology outside of the applications that it was supposed to be serving? The second question is, on the use cases, how to control misinformation, how much to restrict deepfakes, for example, like Pope wearing a puffy jacket, when to allow full autonomy, and when to require human supervision of the technology. And last but not least, questions around improving the safety, estimating the risk of use, being transparent about data sources and the modes of failure of this technology. And finally, on the access to this technology front, we have to think about how much this technology should be open source and accessible to everybody, or whether we create publicly available models that everybody can use to build on. Thank you very much.